Hi, I'm Maureen. A few weeks ago, I walked into my parents' house with groceries and walked out with no family. My sister looked me in the eye and said, "You don't belong to us anymore." And the part that still stings? My parents didn't argue, they just nodded. Have you ever been quietly pushed out of your own family without anyone raising their voice? Let me know in the comments. The light in the living room was soft and gray, the kind that made shadows look heavier. It was spring in Asheville, but a cold one. Quiet. Too quiet for what was about to be said. I came in with a bag of groceries, balancing it on my hip while kicking the door closed behind me. No one turned around. Dad was on the recliner, scrolling his phone. Mom sat at the table with her usual Earl Grey, her fingers absently stirring though the tea bag had long been removed. Delphine stood near the window, arms crossed like she was about to announce a dinner reservation. Instead, she said, "You don't belong to us anymore." Just like that. I froze mid-step. The paper bag creaked as it tilted slightly in my hands. I waited for someone, anyone, to laugh, to say she was joking, to say she was being dramatic. Dad didn't look up. Mom took a slow sip. No clarification, no shock, just a stillness so heavy I thought the room might collapse inward. I put the groceries on the counter. The apples rolled out, bumping into each other like they wanted to run from the moment too. "I'll save you the trouble," I said, not loud, not soft, just enough to fill the dead air. I wiped my palms on the towel near the sink and reached for my coat. No one asked me where I was going. As I walked out, I passed the family wall. A new photo had been hung. My parents, Delphine, on a boat, matching windbreakers, soft smiles. I was there that day. I took that picture, but in this frame, I was gone. Outside, the air bit my skin. I didn't zip up my jacket. My legs felt heavier with each step to the car, like my body knew I wasn't just walking away from a conversation. I was being erased. The kind of erasure that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves you blinking at empty dinner chairs and wondering when your name became a silent word. I remembered suddenly something Delphine whispered when we were teenagers. We were arguing about something small. I think it was who got to ride shotgun. She leaned in close and said, "You're adopted, you know. That's why you never quite fit." I laughed back then. I told her she was insane. But now it didn't sound like a joke anymore. I reached my car, sat down behind the wheel, and just sat. The grocery receipt was still in my pocket. I took it out, crumpled it, and tossed it into the trash bin beside the mailbox. I watched it fall, slowly, like a leaf pretending to know where it belongs. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened a folder labeled Proof 3 Years. Inside were screenshots, emails, notes, things no one thought I was paying attention to. I always knew this day might come. What they didn't know is that I've been preparing. It was just a cake. A simple cheesecake, the kind Delphine used to beg for when we were kids. I made it myself that morning. Her favorite flavor, lemon with graham crust. No one asked me to bring anything. I wasn't even sure I was supposed to be there. Still, I showed up. The house buzzed with soft music and wine glasses clinking. Neighbors, cousins, a few friends of hers from the studio. I walked through the door with the cake in my hands, careful not to smudge the ribbon. Delphine opened the door herself. She blinked when she saw me. "Oh," she said flatly. "You remembered." I nodded. She didn't take the cake. She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in the doorway with my arms full. Everyone else brought wine or flowers. I brought her childhood. I found a spot on the kitchen counter for the cake and set it down, brushing off the condensation. No one looked twice. I wandered into the living room, past the table full of gifts, and added mine quietly to the pile. A small hand-stitched scarf. Cream-colored, simple cross-stitch on the border. I wrapped it in brown paper with a short tag. To Delphine, from M. I didn't wrap it fancy. I wanted it to feel honest. Half an hour later, I saw Mom opening a small box with the scarf inside. Her smile softened in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Delphine always knows exactly what I'd love," she said, holding it to her cheek. The tag was gone. I didn't ask where it went. I didn't say a word. I stood by the drink table, watching a conversation I wasn't invited into, watching a gift I made become someone else's story. No one noticed when I left early. I took the last untouched slice of cheesecake with me, wrapped it in foil like something sacred. On the drive home, the radio played a song I didn't recognize. I turned it off. At a red light, I remembered a science fair. I was 12. Delphine knocked over my volcano model the night before, and when I cried, she said we'd make a new one together. The next day, she stood next to the new version, smiling for the photo. Mom told everyone it was Delphine's winning project. I never corrected her. Even now, I still try, still show up, still hope they'll see me as mine. But in this house, everything I do turns into hers. When I got back to my apartment, I unpacked the cheesecake and put it in the fridge. I opened a drawer in my desk labeled, "When They Ask Why." Later that night, I emptied my coat pocket and found the wrapper from the scarf. Brown paper, soft at the edges, smudged with frosting from someone's fingers. I folded it gently and slid it into the drawer. The conversation was low and casual, drifting in from the hallway like steam from a pot left too long on the stove. I was in the kitchen, drying my hands on a dish towel, when I caught my mother's voice. "They're thinking Key West," she said. I didn't speak right away. I waited, half expecting my name to be mentioned. It wasn't. When I stepped into the room, she glanced at me and added, almost as an afterthought, "It's not finalized yet." That night, Delphine texted me. "Can you help book the flights for everyone? You're good at that stuff." No greeting, no please. But I said yes. I opened my laptop, pulled up my travel bookmarks, and started clicking through dates and names. I even picked seats I knew my father liked. Aisle, near the restroom. I selected a row for Delphine and Leland with extra legroom. I included myself in the group automatically, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The email confirmation came in at midnight. I didn't check it until 2 days later, when something inside me insisted I should. My name wasn't there. No seat, no booking code, no record. I scrolled again, checked the airline's portal, refreshed the page, still nothing. 10 minutes later, a new message from Delphine appeared on my phone. "Oh, forgot to mention, we thought you'd rather have the house to yourself." That was it. No emoji, no punctuation. I didn't respond. Instead, I reopened the email and stared at the names again, reading each one like it was a betrayal in print. It was such a deliberate act, wrapped in convenience, an exclusion disguised as consideration. Later that night, while folding laundry, I thought of Lake Norman. I was 17. They had rented a boat, one of those fancy pontoon things with built-in speakers and fold-out shade canopies. When we got there, the man at the dock had a clipboard. He read the list of names and stopped at 4. "I don't have a 5th listed," he said. My mother smiled, apologetic. "It's fine. Someone needs to take pictures anyway." So I sat on the dock with a library book, pretending the sun didn't hurt and that the wind off the lake didn't sting as they sailed away. Back then, I told myself it was a fluke. Now, I knew better. Somebody always has to stay behind. And this time, it was planned. The following afternoon, I heard Delphine on the phone from the upstairs landing. Her voice was light and amused. "She didn't even ask," she said to Leland. "That's what I love. She knows her place now." I stepped back quietly and closed my bedroom door without a sound. Then I grabbed a sticky note from my desk and wrote a single sentence. "Don't ever forget how it feels to be planned out of a life." I stuck it inside the cover of the travel folder on my desk, right behind the printed itinerary I had built for them. The kettle clicked off as I poured hot water over my tea bag. The morning light crept across the kitchen tiles in stripes, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. Not happiness, not healing, just space. My phone buzzed once on the counter. Delphine. I didn't reach for it. I watched the screen fade, then light up again with a second call. The third came 5 minutes later. I finished my tea slowly. By the time I was rinsing my mug, I had 6 missed calls, 9 by lunch, 15 by dinner. They didn't stop at Delphine. There were calls from my mother, my father, a shared voicemail from one of them. I couldn't tell who recorded it. Maybe they took turns pressing record. "We're stranded," the voice said. "We need help. We're still a family, aren't we?" I played that line 3 times, not because I didn't hear it the first time, but because I couldn't believe they had the nerve to say it. Still a family. I laughed. Not out loud, not bitter, just a quiet sound that caught in my throat and felt more like relief than revenge. They needed me, not to include me, just to save them. Sometime around sunset, curiosity got the best of me. I opened the family group chat, the one I muted years ago but never left. Out of obligation or weakness, I still wasn't sure. There it was. A long post from Delphine. "We're stuck overseas. We've tried reaching out. Our sister refuses to respond. I just hope no one else ever feels this kind of abandonment. Some people just don't have compassion." My thumb hovered over the screen. Cousin Jenna replied, "I'm so sorry you're going through this." Another cousin I hadn't spoken to in 5 years wrote, "That's cold." No one asked if there was another side. No one wondered what happened before the phone stopped ringing. I took a screenshot, then another. I labeled the folder Witness List, just in case. The last call came at 9:47 p.m. This time, it was Leland. I stared at the screen. It lit up my dark living room like a warning flare. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because I knew the story they'd tell. That I abandoned them in crisis. That I let them suffer. But what about all the times they left me out in plain sight? What about all the moments I stayed behind? There's no emergency big enough to erase being invisible. The call came just after 9. I was folding laundry, sorting socks into pairs that no longer matched anything. My phone buzzed face down on the arm of the couch. I flipped it over and saw Leland's name. I didn't answer right away. When I finally did, I kept my voice neutral. "Hey." He didn't waste time. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I can't tell them." His voice sounded different, not polished, not firm, just tired. The way a person sounds when they've finally stopped lying to themselves. "She took the money before we even left," he continued. "Said it was for emergencies, but there was no emergency." I didn't say anything. "She moved it from our joint savings into a personal account, quietly, a few days before the trip." I leaned back into the couch cushions and closed my eyes. He said he found the withdrawal alerts by accident, that he hadn't been checking because, and this made him laugh, bitterly, because I trusted her. I waited. Then he said the part he didn't want to. "I checked my personal account too, the one she's not even listed on." He paused. I heard his breath catch. "There's $13 in it." That landed heavier than I expected, not because of the money, but because of what it meant. The reach of her betrayal, the way it extended past me, past emotional damage, into the real, tangible cost of trust. "She's been taking from me too," he said softly. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. "So it wasn't just emotional theft," I murmured. "She robs everything she touches." He didn't deny it. Silence stretched between us for a beat. "I'm done pretending," he finally said. "I'm going to bring it up. With her, with your parents, whoever needs to hear it." I nodded, though he couldn't see it. "Just be ready," I told him. "When the mirror breaks, it cuts everyone." We agreed to meet later that week. Neutral ground, no surprises. After we hung up, I sat with the phone in my lap for a while. The room felt too still, too aware. Eventually, I opened my laptop and clicked into a folder I hadn't touched in months. Inside were spreadsheets, scanned receipts, screenshots of emails, all labeled, all time-stamped. One file was named Shared Expenses Discrepancies. I scrolled down and found the notes from the yoga studio renovation Delphine had funded last year, supposedly with money from an old savings account. I remembered Mom bragging about how smart her daughter was for managing her finances so well. I had wanted to believe it was clean, that I didn't need this file, that maybe she just hurt me. Not everyone. But people like Delphine don't know how to stop. I whispered it to the empty room. "I didn't want to use this, but I'm not letting her do this to someone else." The dining room had that uncomfortable shine, like everything was too clean and too quiet. The silverware didn't clink, the wine didn't swirl, and even the roast in the middle of the table looked like it was holding its breath. Delphine was laughing too loudly about something no one found funny. Mom gave polite nods. Dad chewed slower than usual. I picked at my salad and said nothing. Then Leland cleared his throat. "I need to say something before dessert," he said. Every movement at the table paused. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Delphine lied about the robbery," he said, turning his gaze to my parents. She moved the money. It was never stolen. Mom's fork hit her plate, not loudly, just enough to echo. Dad looked at Leland like he was reading a foreign language. Leland reached for his bag, pulled out a folder, and placed it in front of them. Neat, prepared. "It's all here," he said. "Every transaction, every lie. Screenshots, bank withdrawals, timeline printouts. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. I just watched Delphine shift in her seat. She adjusted her posture like someone bracing for impact. Dad leaned forward and stared at the pages. Mom blinked slowly, her lips parted, her hand hovering in midair over her glass. Delphine's voice cracked through the tension. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" she said to me. "You've always been jealous. You finally got what you wanted." She pushed back her chair. Her voice rose with every word. "She threatened me. She told me to move the money or she'd ruin me. I was scared. I didn't know what to do." She was crying now. But it wasn't grief. It was theater. My mother glanced at me, unsure. Delphine looked straight at Leland. "She used you. You just don't see it." I turned to him. "Leland, did I ever ask you for money?" He shook his head. Once. Firm. Delphine looked at him like he had slapped her. The silence that followed was different, heavier, like the air knew something had shifted and wasn't going back. Dad sat still, but his eyes flicked from face to face. Then he spoke. "Enough." That was all. Just one word. Not loud, not angry. But for the first time, it sounded final. Mom lowered her eyes. Leland closed the folder and slid it back into his bag. I stood up. "Let me know when you're done pretending," I said quietly, adjusting the chair I had sat in without being welcomed. And I walked out of the room, leaving behind everything they still refused to name. The kitchen was quiet again. No more confrontations, no more folders slapped on the table, just a morning stillness that settled in like dust after a storm. I was making coffee when I heard her footsteps. Marjorie, my mother, moved like she was walking into someone else's house. She sat down at the table, her hands folded neatly in her lap like she was waiting for a verdict. She didn't look at me, but her voice came soft and almost flat. "I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry." The silence after her words was longer than the sentence itself. I waited for more, but there wasn't any. No, I should have stopped her. No, you didn't deserve it. Just that. Sorry. She always had the perfect timing. Sorry when the damage was irreversible. Sorry after the wreckage. She was always sorry when the damage was done, I thought. Never when it could be undone. I didn't reply. I just poured my coffee and walked out of the room. Later, while gathering my things, I found it. It was tucked beneath a placemat in the old dining room hutch, hidden like something you don't throw away but can't quite face. A small white envelope, unsealed. I hesitated before opening it. I already knew what it was. You can feel weight that isn't paper. Inside, one torn page from a lined notebook, my mother's handwriting. "I know Delphine lied, but I didn't want to lose her. I thought you'd survive. You always did." No date, no signature, just cowardice written in cursive. I folded the paper slowly. My hands didn't shake. That was almost worse. She said she was scared. I was too, but only one of us paid for that fear. I put the letter back exactly where I found it. That kind of truth doesn't need to be confronted. It just needs to be seen for what it is. That evening, I didn't eat dinner. I sat on the porch and watched the wind play with the trees. I counted the birds that landed on the wire. I let the quiet say what words couldn't. That night, I wrote one sentence in my journal. A mother's silence is still a choice. I tore out the page and taped it inside my suitcase. The one I had packed and unpacked more times than I could count. Tomorrow, it would stay packed. The house was still. The kind of stillness that didn't invite peace, just reminded you how loud disappointment could be when no one said it out loud. I zipped my suitcase slowly, not to savor the moment, but to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything. Not clothes, not chargers, not myself. I didn't leave a note. I didn't ask who'd need the room next. I didn't glance back into the hallway or wait for footsteps to follow me. Marjorie was in the living room, curled up with a blanket and a book she'd read 3 times. She didn't ask where I was going. Maybe she already knew. Maybe it was easier not to say it aloud. I nodded once as I passed. She looked up but didn't speak. Just blinked once, like acknowledgement had become a luxury. The front door made the softest click behind me. A small sound, really, but it felt bigger than all the slammed doors I'd never gotten to make. This isn't leaving, I told myself, as I placed the suitcase in the back seat. This is choosing to stop waiting. The drive out of Asheville was longer than usual, or maybe my thoughts stretched it. The road signs blurred past like memories I no longer needed to name. Halfway through the mountain bend, my phone lit up. Delphine. I hesitated. The message read, "You win. Let's see how long you last without us." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I saved the text under a folder labeled, "Echoes I Won't Respond To," the kind of message that proved exactly why I had to leave. By the time I reached Henrietta's house, the porch light was already on. The door was open, not unlocked, open. She didn't say anything, just held the screen until I stepped inside. It smelled like cinnamon and something warmer. She handed me a mug of tea, chamomile and lavender, the same blend she kept in a tin that hadn't been refilled since 2009. No questions, just comfort. We sat at the table in quiet, the kind that lets grief pass through without demanding explanation. Later, I unpacked in the guest room. The walls were bare. The light came in soft from one small window. At the bottom of my bag, I found the old folded page I wrote years ago. The one titled, "What I'd Say If They Ever Asked Me Why I Left." I didn't need it anymore. I tore it in half. "If they don't know by now," I whispered, "they never will." The kettle whistled before the sun had fully risen. I opened my eyes to the faint scent of cinnamon and steam, layered over old wood and warm fabric. Henrietta's house didn't creak like my parents'. It settled, like it had made peace with the seasons. I sat up slowly, pulled on a sweater, and followed the hum of that soft, familiar whistle. Henrietta was already at the stove, pouring tea into two mismatched mugs. She didn't say good morning. She didn't ask how I slept. She just handed me the mug and sat across the table. We drank in silence, and it was the most honest conversation I'd had in years. Later, I walked the perimeter of her backyard. Frost still clung to the leaves, but it would melt soon. Things here didn't beg to be seen. They just grew. I paused at the small corner where herbs grew in rusted buckets and cracked pots. I always thought peace would come from being chosen, I said to no one. But sometimes peace is knowing you're not waiting anymore. When I came back inside, I opened my laptop, deleted the family group chat without hesitation, archived the old photo folder I had been too afraid to look through but too hurt to delete, opened a blank document. I titled it, "Next Chapter." That evening, we sat in the living room. No TV, no background noise, just the steady tick of a clock that didn't rush us. Henrietta finally spoke. "You were never the problem, sweetheart," she said, her voice like the couch cushions, worn, soft but firm. "You were just too awake for people who prefer sleepwalking." I didn't cry because it hurt. I cried because for once, I wasn't being asked to shrink so someone else could shine. She reached over and placed her hand on mine. "You don't need anyone to validate your worth anymore." It wasn't a revelation. It was a reminder, one I didn't know I had been waiting for. That night, I placed a small framed quote by my bedside. I had written it years ago, in a draft I never finished, a version of myself I hadn't become yet. It read, "I left when it became clear that staying would have meant losing myself." I looked in the mirror, no longer scanning for cracks, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I used to think I had to earn my place in my own family, to prove I belonged by being useful, forgiving, quiet. But the truth is, no one gets to decide your worth but you. Healing didn't come from them apologizing, it came when I stopped waiting for it. If this story made you reflect on your own family, I wonder, have you ever stayed too long in a place where you were never truly seen? What would it look like if you chose yourself today? I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched your heart, drop a 1 in the comments or share where you're watching from. And if it didn't resonate, I'd still love to know why. Let's talk about it. Let's grow through it. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss the next story. Because healing starts with being heard.